Welcome to another fun-filled weekend edition of Second City Sports Zoom Style.
Zoom Style.
Along with Miss Lakeena McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brown. That's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
You can follow this podcast, Second City Sports, first right here on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. Videos drop every Monday and Friday. Once again, videos drop every Monday and Friday for a sneak peek right here on YouTube. You can catch the audio versions of this podcast at War on Anchor. Once again, that's at War on Anchor. That drops every Tuesday and Saturday. Once again, every Tuesday and Saturday for the audio versions. That's at War on Anchor. We're available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. Make sure you type in that search engine box, War on Anchor, WARR on Anchor. And you can go to our website, weareregalradio.com. And you can follow us on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and right here on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Yes, and we're unapologetically fun. Lakeena, let's start off as usual with baseball. One team that is having fun on one side of town, and that's the North Siders and the Chicago Cubs. The Men in Blue made history this past Thursday in Dodger Stadium in Southern California, Los Angeles to be exact. The Ball Club pitched their first combined no-hitter in team history. Congratulations to Zach Davies, Ryan Turpa, Andrew Chafin, and Craig Kimbrell, who all held it down for the Men in Blue as part of a 4-0 win of the Los Angeles Dodgers in the first of the 4-game series. Lakeena, I believe it's the seventh no-hitter in Major League Baseball this year officially.
Yep. We'll count.
Of course,
I'll say we're going to count 8 because Bob Gardner. We're giving you that no-hitter, my friend.
Yes, you read my mind. See, great minds think alike. So the Cubs made history with a combined no-hitter as part of that 4-0 shutout win against Los Angeles Dodgers. The game started off with a Javi Baez solo home run in the first inning. Of course, the Cubs picked up 2 more runs in the 6th, 1 in the 7th to seal the deal. Lakeena, we talked about it on the show throughout the whole season, at least for the last month. That Cubs bullpen has been just about lights out. They're human just like everybody else. We saw that last week during their losing streak. But against one of the defending world champions in the Los Angeles Dodgers, they came to play on the road on Thursday. Their bullpen, it has been tremendous. Zach Davies, he's been great during the month of June. We talked about his start against the Cardinals a couple weeks ago on Sunday Night Baseball, pitching shutout ball. He did his thing on Thursday, pitching shutout ball and no-hit ball, obviously, against the Dodgers. I believe they still need another starting pitcher, but what they did on Thursday night was incredible. You had to give them props for that.
I mean, well, the crazy thing about it is I think, like you said, this is their first combined no-hitter, and this is actually just the fifth or sixth time that a team has no-hit the defending World Series champions. So so take that, that little trivia for what it's worth. I mean, I know people look at that and say, well, they had like 8 walks. Davies had 5 walks, but this is sort of like the Edwin Jackson no-hitter, if you will. He had about 5 or 6 walks during his no-hitter. But look, I mean,
he threw like 130 pitches too.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, so that was a little bit crazy there, but look, I mean, they did what they had to do. I mean, Davies, he got out of those messes with those walks. Tapera did his thing. Chafin's been lights out. Kimbrell's been lights out. The crazy thing about it is that I think Chafin and Kimbrell had no clue what was happening. Tapera thought that Tapera knew what was happening, but Chafin and Kimbrell didn't. Because I guess the way if you see Dodger Stadium, the way it's set up, the bullpen, the opponent's bullpen is like right on the other side, and you can't see the scoreboard. So it's plausible that they probably did not know, that Chafin and Kimbrell did not know that that what was happening. But if you heard Kimbrell's interview afterwards, he was like, okay, cool. But they got the win, which is the most important thing. Baez had a couple of big hits. Last Thursday night, Contreras, who caught his first no-hitter, so congrats to him. He had a couple of RBIs and a homer. So look, Look, this is a great start for the Cubs. Hopefully, you can at least split the series with the Dodgers. I know the Dodgers have had their struggles lately with the injuries, and this. Yes, you can see their lineup. This isn't the top Dodgers lineup right now because of some of the injuries. But look, I think you don't take this away for the Cubs. I mean, and plus the Cubs have actually been playing very well. I think their over under was 79 for their win total. They're already at 42 as of this recording. So just a great performance, and you got to think that Rossi should definitely be in contention for NL Manager of the Year right now.
Focusing on that Cubs offense, of course, we're focusing on what happened on Thursday night with the history being made. But with that Cubs offense, they scored 11 runs in their last 2 games as of this recording. Of course, they scored, I believe, 7 runs against Cleveland in their only victory against them this past Tuesday. So they split the 2-game series at Wrigley, of course. They scored 4 runs on Thursday against the Dodgers. So those bats are starting to come around. You mentioned Wilson Contreras. He had the big 2-run blast in the 6th inning. Javi Baez looks like he's starting to show some power a little bit. Anthony Rizzo's coming around a little bit. Chris Bryant's cooled off a little bit, but hopefully he'll come around as the series continues this weekend for the Cubs. As we mentioned, again, for the past couple of weeks, this was the toughest part of their schedule. I know they get Philadelphia at home in about, I believe, next weekend, I believe. And they get Cincinnati and spring it up in there too. That's not going to be easy because those are division rivals that they don't like each other. So those will be tough games as well. You should be able to win that series. But for the Cubs, the offense looks like it's starting to come around, and you start to see some big names starting to heat up. Now, injuries happening to the Cubs right now with Nico Horner and a couple of other guys. But Jake Mrazek came through with a big hit on Thursday night. And you see Rafael Ortega, who's been filling in nicely at center field. He played on Thursday night.
Yep.
He gives you a quality at bat every time he's up at the plate. He's not going to get a hit every time, but he makes the pitcher earn their keep. So if you're David Ross, assuming you get everybody healthy within the next couple of weeks or so, you really have some valuable options there. Of course, Patrick Duffy has been the story over the last month. He's cooled off a bit in terms of his power, but he's still contributing to the lineup. So when the Cubs get everybody body back healthy, David Ross will have some parts to play with.
And I think if you're David Ross, that's a good problem to have. You have all those pieces. Have guys like Matt Duffy and guys like Jock Peterson. Has been proven to be a really good signing for the Cubs. Ortega, you mentioned him, Sid. I mean, look, he's going to make you work for it. Wisdom's kind of tapered off a little bit, but he's still a very formidable hitter. Hayward's had his struggles, but he had some time. He drew a walk in that Thursday shutout win against the Dodgers. But again, like you said, once they get everybody back, I think who knows. Now, if you're Jed Hoyer, once you get into the trade deadline, what can you do? Can you try to maybe get you another starter if you can get one for the cheap? Look, you can never have too many bats, but I think pitching is really where the Cubs. I think they need another starter too, especially if you're talking about contending in the National League, which I think, if considering what's happened this week, you still have a shot overall in the whole National League.
Yeah, you talked about it before, Lakeena. I know you suggested that if you're Jed Hoyer, it doesn't hurt to get another big name arm in that bullpen. Why not? You want to send a message not only to your competition within the NL Central, but to the rest of the National League, including the Dodgers, that you had to come through us. You want to go to the World Series. We have the best bullpen in the National League, perhaps in all of baseball. And so I don't know if Jed Hoyer is going to get all 3 of those needs addressed at the trade deadline, but another starting pitcher would not hurt. It would help. Yeah, because considering Zach Davies, as I mentioned before, he's giving you a great month of June. Kyle Hendricks is starting to turn around a little bit. He's not where he was a few years ago, but it's been good enough because he's been backed up by the offense. And, of course, Jake Arrieta, he's been struggling. As of this podcast, he pitched in the game on Friday. Arrieta has been struggling after he got off to that surprise start in April. He's been downhill ever since. So Albert Alzolay, who will pitch on Sunday, which is tomorrow for those of you listening on our podcast. He'll pitch tomorrow on Sunday night football. Good grief! Sunday night baseball against the Dodgers to wrap up that.
You're in football mode already.
No. So he'll pitch on Sunday night baseball, which is tomorrow for those of you listening on our podcast, against Clayton Kershaw to wrap up the 4-game series. So as of late, he's been good ever since his return from injury. So if you're a Cubs fan right now, you still should be hopeful. As we told you guys throughout the season, this NL Central is up for grabs. And the Cubs just continue to play above 500 ball, you should be able to win this division. It's not going to be easy, but you should be able to win this division.
Yeah, you really should. And I think, look, does anybody else scare you? I mean, do the Cardinals scare you? Do the Reds, they've had their moments, but, they're up and down. The Brewers, you're sort of like mirror images of them. So you're kind of like, okay, sort of like the game of
We said this, they're the wild card in all this.
They are. So we'll see if they make any moves during the trade deadline. So I think, look, Jed Hoyer will have a lot to play with. And I know some people wouldn't envy his position, but I think at the same time, you kind of look at it and say, you know what? He's in a pretty good spot. So we'll see what happens. And, okay, so let's go to the other side of town for a second for your White Sox. The White Sox snapped their 5-game losing streak against the Pirates. Thank God. I was starting to, that I was getting look, that Tuesday game. I mean, my goodness, I guess to try to split that, that 2-gamer, you're like, oh Lord, I hope they didn't. That's the last thing the Sox needed was to be swept by the Pirates. But the good news is, thank goodness for Yasmani Grandal, who helped snap that skid. They're playing the Mariners in their weekend series over at the old, G-rate field.
Sox Park.
Well, whatever.
Sox Park.
Whatever. So where do you see the White Sox? Are they kind of in a good
for those
spot
of you
right
that are
now?
watching YouTube, read the shirt. Read the shirt. That's what you call it, damn it.
Oh, gosh. On a serious note, though, Sid, so what do you think about the White Sox, and how do you feel about them as they go into this weekend series against the Mariners?
Yeah, Yasmani Grandal was the story offensively for the Sox, right? Tuesday, you mentioned he had the 3-run home run. The bullpen couldn't hold it. Of course, he had the 2-run game-winning RBI double on Wednesday to have the Sox win that game. That was very important to stop that season high as of this recording 5-game losing streak. The bullpen held it down. Liam Hendricks closed it out. Lakeena, as you said before the season started, that the middle relief was going to be a problem. It was on Tuesday. It almost happened again on Wednesday, but thank goodness it wasn't. I expect them to bounce back this weekend against Seattle. Hopefully, most of the games will get in because I know we have a threat of rain this weekend. Of course, your show will be out there on Sunday, so hopefully the rain will hold off for these games to get played, which I believe it will. So, but going back to on the field. As we mentioned, the White Sox have a soft schedule coming up between now and the All-Star break for them to, quote-unquote, get right. We saw what they were against the Astros. The pitching, starting pitching, they're human. They got exposed. The offense, or the lack thereof, got exposed. And we saw that to a lesser extent against the Pirates. Hopefully this weekend you're back at home. You're back in the sandbox. You want to see your big superstars like Tim Anderson, Yohan Moncada, who's been struggling the last few weeks, Jose Abreu, who's coming off the worst month of his career in June. I want to see him do well as far as putting numbers on the board. So it's time for the superstars to step up. And it's no better time than you facing a Seattle team. I know they're lurking around 500, but they don't scare you. So you bring that attitude to the ballpark. You send a message to them and say, we're the better team. You had to come through us. And so I'm looking for the superstars this weekend to step up for the White Sox.
Well, and like you said, so they have a soft schedule, if you will, with the Mariners series, and they have 4 against Minnesota next week. Then they have 3 at Detroit, 3 at Minnesota, and they finished the first half of their season 3 at Baltimore. So this is sort of the White Sox chance to sort of like, pad their lead, if you will, because don't look now, but the Indians, as this recording, are only a couple of games back. They've been playing very well lately too. So it's definitely, you want to win, not just for your confidence and for your morale, but also because of the fact that the Indians are nipping at your heels.
Yeah, as I said, you win your games against lesser opponents. You play at or slightly above, 500 against the better competition. So for the White Sox, the reason why they have this record because of their record against their division, against below 500 teams. I know they haven't bid so well as much against 500 teams, but you can say that for the rest of the best teams in the AL as well. So the White Sox are joined by some great company. I'm using that in air quotes here. And so for the White Sox, you have a chance to get right. And you're playing Seattle. You're at home. This should be a sweep. And I'm calling it right now. I'm putting the pressure on the White Sox to sweep this team. Needs to get back on track. There's no reason why you should be able to do that. You have Dallas Keuchel going on Sunday, which is the game I'll be at. I believe Lance Lynn is going this afternoon on Saturday. So you have your top dogs going for the White Sox. So I'm looking for, especially those two pitchers I just mentioned, they are pitching today and tomorrow. I'm looking for those guys to get back on track, but the offense got to help them out.
This is what I call the get right part. If you're a White Sox fan, you have the schedule I just mentioned. The store your time to, at the very least, if not sweep, at least win these series, so that way you can kind of like pad your lead against the Indians going into, because they got the pretty tough schedule. They got to play Houston and Tampa Bay right before the All-Star break, so they've got a tough schedule. So this is sort of your way to kind of extend your lead, because the Indians are feeling like maybe they can have a chance. So we'll see, but I think, again, this is sort of like the part of your schedule going into the All-Star break where you can kind of like get to that, get the confidence back, boost that morale and just, get back to, being where you should be.
You're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brown, which is me, as we talk Chicago White Sox baseball. A couple more notes about the White Sox before we move on to the entire best and worst of the week in MLB. Adam Engel was placed on the injured list again for 10 days the other day. I don't know if we mentioned that in our last episode, but the depth is now hurt again for the Chicago White Sox. And we talked about it in our last episode. They're doing it with slightly with smoke and mirrors. Is this still a good ball club? Yes. Is it a World Series ball club? No. Can this team win a division as is? Maybe, because the rest of the teams in your division minus Cleveland is terrible. Even though Kansas City is a little bit better than what people give them credit for. They're where the White Sox were 2 years ago. But with that being said, I think this team could make the playoffs with this roster that's saying Pat now, but that's about it. I think GM Rick Hahn will make a move or two at the deadline, but for the White Sox fans that are panicking so much, I know the pressure's on this year, and I get it. But if you want Rick Hahn as of this moment to make a blockbuster deal, as we said in our last episode, blockbuster deal doesn't happen right before July 4th. It just doesn't.
Yeah, and
I think this will be carried up until the deadline, but there will be a couple of new pieces in here. I guarantee you by July 31st.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see like what Rick Hahn decides to do. Does he try to get another pitcher or especially a middle reliever? Because that's really what the White Sox desperately need. I mean, your bats are fine once Eloy comes back and and everything else. We'll see where they are in that front, but you definitely need another.
Maybe Luis Robert in the middle of August. Maybe.
Again, that's still up in the air at this point. There hasn't been any updates with him, but maybe get you another starter. You really don't need another starter, but maybe get you a relief. That's a middle relief, especially. That's really what this team needs, especially if you're trying to not only win your division, but perhaps advance in the AL. You have to get your middle relief going and. Maybe look, Rick Hahn's very creative. Well, that's one thing you can say about him. So we'll see what kind of moves he make. I think he will make a move. Who and where and when? Those are all questions that we're gonna have to answer.
Yeah, it depends on who they try to get. You don't want to raid your whole farm system. They don't have a lot as many people to assume that they have.
Right.
So whoever this player is, whether it's Adam Frazier, who looked good against the Sox earlier this week against the Pirates, is it him or is it somebody else that we don't know about right now? I just don't want Rick Hahn. I think he's smart enough not to throw away the whole farm system just for a player that you may rent for a couple of months.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely something that I'm sure Rick Hahn's thinking about, and I'm sure you trust Rick Hahn, so we'll see what he does.
Also, real quick on the another injury front for the Southsiders, Michael Kopech was seen thrown off the mound during their road trip through Pittsburgh the other day. So hopefully that's a good sign that he'll be back soon because he was the lightning rod coming out of their bullpen early in the season. Of course, he had a couple of spot starts because Lance Lynn, remember back in April, he was given the start off, and Michael Kopech filled in tremendously. And of course, Kopech did it again next month, the following month in May with a spot start. He had, I believe it was 10 strikeouts against the Rangers during that game. So Kopech is desperately needed in that bullpen, but like we've been saying, Rick Hahn needs to make another move to get another veteran arm in here for that middle relief.
So yeah, she'll be very interested to see what he does and what moves does he make, and hopefully you won't have to give up some of your top guys that you do have in your farm system. All right, Sid. So let's go. Let's talk about the all of baseball. What impressed you? What made you scratch your head when it comes to? And I already know what you're gonna say, but I have to say it. But lay it on us.
You just said the magic word, scratching your head. We were talking about the rule from Major League Baseball. Of course, it was enforced this past Monday about using illegal foreign substances for pitchers, starters, and relievers. They're checked at least the starting pitchers are checked every first and third innings to see if they have anything illegal. And of course, going back to Tuesday, as you mentioned, Lakeena, scratching your head, the Washington Nationals defeated the Philadelphia Phillies 3-2. But that wasn't the story. Max Scherzer, who pitched a whale of a game, I was watching this one on replay via my computer. Max Scherzer was checked already twice, mandated by baseball. He was checked again between the fourth and fifth innings. Of course, manager Joe Girardi of the Philadelphia Phillies, he made a comment during his post-game presser that, of course, Joe Girardi was the manager of the New York Yankees when Matt Scherzer was pitching for Detroit. Mm-hmm. And he said, I'm watching Matt Scherzer throughout his whole career. He never patted his head. And, of course, Scherzer said that he had some gel on his head and tried to grip the ball, yada, yada, yada. But between the fourth and fifth innings on Tuesday night, Matt Scherzer was, quote-unquote, checked again. Of course, Joe Girardi was pointing from the dugout to the ump, says check Matt Scherzer again after he saw Matt Scherzer rubbing his head. Of course, Matt Scherzer went out there and started throwing his hands up in the air, pulled his pants down, he almost pulled his Steve Cycle line. Someone else did that as well. We'll get to that player in just a moment. But Matt Scherzer said, come on, oh, what did I do wrong? And then both of them started yelling back and forth like 5-year-old kids fighting for the most popular girl in school. Yeah, I thought the thing was just so hilarious. And of course, after the sixth inning, when Scherzer was done for the night, Joe Girardi started yelling at him again from the dugout. Of course, Joe Girardi was ejected. But Matt Scherzer said, "Well, what do you want me to do now? You want me to check it again?" Start barking back and forth. Of course, the whole Washington Nationals coaching staff, including former Cub and White Sox player and now current manager Davey Martinez, started yelling back and forth. This was BS, blah, blah, blah. I just find the whole thing to be hysterical.
just the absurdity of it all. I mean, are we going to get to a point where this is going to happen just about every time? Or is someone going to have to drop their pants? Is someone going to have to take off their shirt? Is someone going to have to
airport security?
Yeah. Or is it really going to get to
the drop in the pants part?
Yeah, I know. I mean, are we going to have to someone going to have to check their hair? I mean, really? Check their armpits or something? I mean, it's just absurd. And I hate the fact that baseball decided to do this, especially in the middle of the season, especially with things. Mm-hmm. This has been happening in baseball for over 140 years. Pitchers have been using these type of things to sort of, grip the ball and make it, throw it a little bit, a little bit faster. I mean, and there was no competitive advantage from it, but they saw, like I said in the last episode, they saw that the home run numbers are down. They figured, let's do something really stupid, and they've done just that. So I'm hoping that this doesn't start a trend. Is this going to be a thing now where guys are going to have to, take off all their whole freaking jersey just to see that, hey, I'm not using none of that stuff? Oh God, it's going to be like, a little bit of, what you see with Cinemax After Dark. I mean, good grief. Not that
Remember,
I watch.
Lakeena said that, not me.
I don't watch. Not that I watch, but I'm just saying.
Right.
I swear.
But I was watching that whole scenario. I was watching the Washington Nationals broadcast team of Justin Maxwell. Got his name right. He's the new TV analyst. And Bob Carpenter, the legendary voice, baseball voice. Of course, he did some stuff for ESPN back in the day for those of you younger folks. He said this.
Did a lot of Mountain West basketball, or back then it was the WAC, but yeah, a lot of those West Coast basketball games. Yep, he did a lot of those. But
facts. But he said during that broadcast on Tuesday, everybody talks about the pace of play and how long these games go on. And he says that this continues, which we know is going to. I don't want to hear about pace of play. I thought about it for a couple of seconds. I said, he's right.
Yeah, he is.
This definitely slows the game down. I know, as we mentioned before, that the umpires check the starting pitchers after every first and third innings, and they check every reliever before and after each inning. I'm talking about for the relievers. So if I'm with Bob Carpenter, the TV voice of the Nationals, on this one, we talk about the pace of play. This takes longer or distracts the pace of the game. I don't want to hear about pace of play. This clearly slows the pace down.
Yeah, this is just like I said, it's just totally absurd, and I hate that they did this. Especially in the middle of the season. Just to see if he can get the home run numbers up. And you look at what the Cubs did on Thursday. Look, none of those guys use any of that stuff. So I just find it kind of hilarious that this is going to be a thing now. Okay, so you're going to have to be checking guys. Okay, let's make let's make the game even longer. Oh, goody, this should be good. Okay, so you can look. They can go pound sand with that too. So I don't know what else to tell you.
And speaking of another player that had his on the field airport security, as we call it, moment during the same day, Oakland took 2-3 out from the Texas Rangers this week. But during the same day, Sergio Romo, the former Tampa Bay Rays and San Francisco Giants pitcher, now pitcher for Oakland, he was frustrated as well. He almost pulled the Steve Psycho Lions as well, pulling down his pants. He's like, you can have my shirt. You can have my glove. You can have my hat. I ain't doing anything wrong. Hey, check me. I ain't doing nothing wrong. Everything but.
God.
Take over, Lakeena.
Well, let's talk about stuff on the field, because just the asinine-ness of it. This is just I can't.
Hey, take the wristband. Take my headband. Take my hat. Take my home run chain if you have to. Go, you can have it all.
I'll talk about stuff that's going on
take
the
my
field.
Dirty socks.
Oh God. Okay, let's. Okay, mute yourself there, Sid. But Kyle Schwarber, he's up to 8 home runs and 15 RBIs in his last 5 games at this recording. He's the only other players. He joins guys like Frank Howard, Sean Green, and Manny Ramirez, for having such stats. He's now just one shy of tying the Nets Expos record for home runs in a calendar month. So they've been, Nationals been playing better lately. So I would say, look, if you're the Cubs, maybe give the Nationals a call. But they've been playing better lately, so I don't think they're going to be trading anybody. But they've won 5 in a row. But what else on the field has caught your eye this week?
Going back to I'm not gonna say Spygate, but Stickygate one more time. Garrett Cole, he lost his last start during the first game of their 3-game series against Kansas City on Tuesday. Of course, the Yankees won the last 2 games of that series to take their series at home. We talked about this in our last few episodes, Lakeena. Garrett Cole came from the culture of cheating from the Astros. He started off hot for the season, but his last few starts, he has not looked good. You could tell that this new rule has really affected him, and we saw that on Tuesday night as the Royals stole the opening game of that series, and before the Yankees bounced back to the win the last 2. That's what jumped out at me there. Of course, the Anaheim Angels did not look good against the San Francisco Giants. The San Francisco Giants, as we mentioned, Lakeena, it looks like they're not going away and sticking with the NL West. I did watch all 3 games of this series this past week. Congratulations to the San Diego Padres for sweeping the Los Angeles Dodgers. I'm not going to sit here and say that these games didn't mean anything to the Dodgers, but San Diego has been playing on such an emotional high. They own the Dodgers this year. I think they won every game except for 1 this year against their rivals. And this was the first time that the Padres swept the Dodgers in Petco Park in 11 years.
I saw that, and it was just fascinating to see that particular, and look, it's good to see. It was just great all around. And look, if you look at the division standings right quick, every division is still pretty much up for grabs. The AL East is still up for grabs. The Central, of course, as like I said, with the Indians being right there behind the White Sox. Oakland and Houston, they're going to be battling out for the West, the AL West. Like I said, the Nationals, have won 5 in a row. So, we'll see if they can, maybe make a run. And probably with the Mets, they've kind of had their struggles. Atlanta just can't get their stuff together. We talked about the Central, the West. But the Giants are not slowing down. Gabe Kepler, you got to think that he's definitely someone that could also, a guy that could also be right there for Manager of the Year in the National League. But it's gonna be like I said, it's gonna be. Look, you should be very happy. Despite everything else, baseball should be very happy with some of the things that what's going on. Especially that a lot of these divisions are still competitive this late in the season.
And also, too, the Boston Red Sox did battle with the Tampa Bay Rays early this week. Congrats to number one baseball prospect, Willie Franco, who came up there
Yes.
shortstop. He hit his first home run in his first game. So, as we mentioned before, all these division races are tight. The Toronto Blue Jays took care of business early this week down there in South Florida against the Miami Marlins. But Boston, even though I still don't like their team overall, they're not going away. We know Tampa Bay, the defending AL champions, they're not going away either. So there's going to be a tight race in the AL East. Maybe Boston will be their team to fall off. I don't know. As we'll give you the this weekend series in progress in just a moment. But the Boston, they're going to battle the Yankees. As I mentioned, the Yankees got their act together to win the last two games of their series this week against Kansas City. So the AL East minus Baltimore is going to be a logjam.
Definitely going to be a battle for those wild card spots as well. And talking about those weekend series, all right, you got the Phillies and the Mets. That should be a good one there in the NL East. That should be a fun one. Colorado and Milwaukee. That should be, interesting series. I mean, Colorado got the best of Milwaukee the last time they played it last weekend, so I'm sure the Brewers going to want some revenge. Baltimore and Toronto.
Yeah, especially the Cubs scuffle here in Los Angeles.
Exactly. So that should be an interesting one there. Baltimore and Toronto. You got the Angels and the Rays. You got Atlanta and Cincy. Atlanta just can't catch a break. Houston and Detroit. The Yankees and Boston. That's always a big series between those two teams. And this weekend shouldn't be any different. Washington and the Marlins. And let's see here. You've got Washington against the Marlins. The Royals against the Rangers. Of course, Cleveland and Minnesota. We'll see if Cleveland trying to stay behind the White Sox within striking distance. The Mariners.
Yeah, Byron Buster got hurt again for the Twins.
Yeah, the Twins are just not having a good season at all. They may end up blowing the team up. Who knows? And you also, of course, the Mariners and the White Sox. So very interesting series coming up this weekend, Sid.
Yeah, and tonight on Fox Saturday Baseball, for those of you listening on audio, obviously, most of the country will get that Boston Yankees overrated series, even though I'll be watching live via my computer. The other half of the country will get the Cubs and the Dodgers. So Fox has lucked out this week. So most of the markets will get the Boston and Yankees, and of course the other half of the country will get Cubs and Dodgers. So Fox lucked out this week as far as their primetime coverage on a Saturday night.
That's it, and also too, Cubs and Dodgers will be Sunday night baseball too. So they're getting both the Cubs and the Dodgers are getting their national treatment these last couple of games. So tomorrow night. So make sure you guys check that out. Also too, Pittsburgh and St. Louis to finish up the weekend series, and we'll make sure I got them all. And I think that's it. I think that's all. I said them all. So, yeah, so it's a really great series coming up this weekend. So make sure you guys check them out.
All right, you're listening to Second City Sports Weekend Edition along with Lakeena McGee, which is she. I am Sidney Brown. That's me. As we wind up this first segment, Lakeena, let's hop on to the NBA playoffs. Let's start off in the Western Conference. Games 2 and 3 were played earlier this week between the Los Angeles Clippers and the Phoenix Suns. Chris Paul did return to the lineup in Game 3. We'll review that game in just a moment, but first, Lakeena, let's go back to last Tuesday's contest, Game 2 from Phoenix. The Suns eat one now, 104-103, thanks to DeAndre Ayton's alley-oop dunk with 0.9 seconds to go. Of course, Paul George on the possession before that missed 2 free throws, but he did lead the Clippers with 26.6 rebounds, 6 assists. Campaign, yes, right, folks, Campaign, the same one that couldn't play for the Chicago Bulls. He led Phoenix with 29 points and 9 assists. Lakeena, the Clippers played better in Game 2. It was a hard-fought game. Phoenix continued the pressure, but as we said before, in tight situations, it comes down to execution. The Phoenix Suns did it, and the Clippers didn't. The Clippers, if you want to make an argument, should have let Phoenix with the 1-1 series tie.
Yeah, and I think they're going to be kicking themselves about that, and I'm sure PG is going to be kicking himself too about missing those free throws. I know there was some replay that lasted those last few seconds lasted almost a half an hour, but I guess they had to kind of make sure that was all sorted out. But I think, like you said, Sid, I think if you're the Clippers, you should be we'll get to the game 3 in a minute, but you should be up in your series right now, and you let an opportunity slip away. I'm sure PG, like I said, he's kicking himself for missing those free throws, but it is what it is. And look, I think, Devin Booker, broken nose at all, had 20 points. Campaign, 29.
Yep.
No one saw that coming. So DeAndre Ayton had 24. So definitely, the Celtics were able to hold down the fort with CP3 not being able to play. So look, I expect the series to go 6 or 7. So I'm not like, if you're a Clippers fan, and if we saw from Thursday, it's game 3, you shouldn't be freaking out, and you shouldn't. So this is gonna be a good hard fought series. The Suns held serve at home, even without one of their leaders. So if you're the Suns, I think you should be feeling pretty good, at least for the moment.
Before we move on to our review of Game 3, Lakeena, remember this statistic that I threw out in our last episode? Excuse me. Marcus Morris Sr., who was questionable before Games 2 action, he did play only 25 minutes. I said Marcus Morris Sr. and Nicholas Batum should have a combined 20 points. I said both those players combined scored 20 points. The Clippers would win. They failed 10 points of my expectations. Marcus Morris Sr., even though he was injured, he only scored 7 points off of 3 of 11 shooting. Nicholas Batum, in 16 minutes of action, hit 1 field goal. It was 1 for 1 from the 3-point line. He only had 3 points. Lakeena, it just didn't work out for those two in Game 2. Like I said, Marcus Morris Sr., I give him a slight excuse only because he was questionable before the game. You could tell he tried to eke it out, but Nicholas Batum, I don't know what's going on with him. But I'll leave that alone.
Well, let's go to Game 3, which was, a pivotal Game 3 for the Clippers, and they were able to pull it out. I mean, Zubik, first time to start lineup this playoffs, had 15 points. Like you said, so Marcus Morris Sr., unfortunately, he's been banged up, so that's why Zubik got in the lineup, had 15 points. Reggie Jackson had 23. Paul George had 27, and also Terrence Mann had 12 points. So they got a little bit contributions from some of the guys on the bench. I mean, Luke Kennard, that was his birthday, by the way, so happy belated birthday to him. He had 9. He had 9 points. So look, I think the Clippers did what they were supposed to do. They were able to, they got to the 3-point early. They struggled from 3, but they were able to kind of combat that by doing really well with the free throws. So the Clippers were able to kind of like overcome those struggles from 3 and were able to kind of pull it out.
Yeah, the Clippers were in control throughout most of that game, except for the second quarter where Phoenix made their run. But as you mentioned, Lakeena, looking at the stat sheet here, the Clippers had a much balanced scoring. Patrick Beverley, most of his minutes have been taken away due to Reggie Jackson. Reggie Jackson has been the number 2 man for the Clippers throughout this playoff run, especially after Kawhi Leonard's injury. As we said on our last episode, assuming that Kawhi Leonard is going to be out at least for the rest of this series. But as you mentioned, Paul George, as of right now, the criticism should be off his back. He's really carrying this team right now. He had balanced scoring for Zubac, who got eaten alive on that last play defensively. Patrick Beverley came back with an 8-point piece. Nicholas Batum is still disappointing. He had 4 points. And so we saw playoff Rondo for 8 minutes. He didn't do much. So Ty Lue is not really trusting him right now. So Luke Kennard, as you mentioned, happy belated birthday to him. He came in huge with those 9 points, including those 2 huge 3-point shots down the stretch.
Which definitely put the game away from the Clippers. So look, I think the Clippers, we'll see. Listen, we'll see what they're, like Game 4. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's definitely pivotal for the Clippers to, even the series, because you don't want to go back to Phoenix being down 3-1. You don't want that. So, hopefully they can do it. I mean, I think, look, we will see. I mean, I know some people were saying that CP3 was trying to overdo it, because, him being back for not being able to play those first couple of games. But look, he had 12 assists. I just, unfortunately, they just couldn't hit their shots. They were only 10 for 32 from 3. And when usually that's their 3 points, usually their strong suit. So you can tell that Booker was still kind of, fumbling away with that broken nose. So hopefully he's learned how to play with a mask. So we'll see how he looks with the mask on. But look, I'm looking forward to see Game 4. Game 4 should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, Game 4 is tonight at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time on ESPN. I believe the Clippers will even up this series. We'll be talking about a whole new series for our next episode set for Tuesday. Lakeena, last series, of course, is the Eastern Conference Finals. Before we close up shop for this first segment of Second City Sports, oh, as we told you guys in our last episode, as we review Game 1 between the Atlanta Hawks and the Milwaukee Bucks, the Atlanta Hawks pulled off the upset by defeating the Bucks on their home court, 116 to 113. Trae Young was the story for the Atlanta Hawks, putting up a 48-piece to go along with his 7-rebound, 11-assist performance. Giannis Antetokounmpo for Milwaukee led the team with 34 points, 12 rebounds, and 9 assists. Lakeena, as we talked about on our last episode previewing this series, who is going to guard Trae Young for the majority of the time? We said Drew Holiday. In Game 1, it didn't matter who you put on Trae Young. Trae Young was just in the zone. He did that little Steph Curry shimmy from Drew Holiday off that pick and roll early in that third quarter. And you could tell that it was just one of those nights. If you're a defender, when your opponent is having one of those nights, it's nothing you could do to stop them. And that's what happened to the Atlanta Hawks in Game 1.
Yeah, and I think, once we all know once Young kind of hits that zone, you could just forget about it. I mean, and look, they had balanced scoring throughout them. And look, Collins had 23 big points. I mean, John Collins had 23. He's having a great playoffs. I mean, Kevin Huerter had 13. He had some big shots late.
Yeah.
Bella had 12 points. I mean, I think there's just nice little balanced scoring. It wasn't all dependent on Trae Young. And look, it's going to be a big task for someone to have to try to guard Trae Young. That's going to be a very hard thing to do. We know this. People should know it. And look, I think the other guys need to step up with their defense. You just have to. Holiday needs to step up a little bit more. He had 33, but, he wasn't able to stop Trae Young when it counted. I mean, Brook Lopez, step up a little bit there, dude. I mean, come on, you need to kind of help out a little bit more. PJ Tucker, I mean, you're willing to talk, but you're not backing it up. So you need to kind of, show up a little bit too. So, I know Bobby Portis, former Bull. I know people still love him here in Chicago. Had 11 points, right? I mean, he had 11 points, but
except for Miritic.
yeah, he wasn't a big fan of his. But that's another story for another episode. But yeah, he had 11 points. Yep. So there just needs to be sort of balanced scoring from the Bucks, because I think Bucks and their fans are realizing that this Atlanta team's actually pretty good, and we probably shouldn't take them very lightly.
Yeah, as we said in our last episode, Atlanta is going to be a team that's playing on house money. They're not going to go away. They weren't expected to be here. Give head coach Nate McMillan credit for getting this team back on track. And Trae Young is playing the best ball of his career, not just offensively, but distributing basketball as well. As I mentioned, he had 11 assists in Game 1. By the time this recording is out, Game 2 will already been played. Game 3, I believe, is tomorrow. So we'll give you our review of the next 2 games for our next episode. But for Milwaukee, I expect them to bounce back in this series, and I expect them to be leading this series by the time we record our next episode for Tuesday next week. So I believe this series is going to be a long series. As I said, Milwaukee in 6. But Atlanta's going to give them a run for their money. This is just only the beginning.
Oh, I think so too, and I think the Bucks are realizing that maybe you shouldn't be listening to your local people and saying that, hey, y'all got the series. They're not gonna, because I saw it from some people in Milwaukee. Were like, you know what, you're not gonna play that hard. Atlanta, Atlanta's just happy to get to this far. No, they're in it to win it, and Trae Young even said during the post game. I mean, they're in it to win it. They're not just gonna be happy to be in the Eastern Conference Finals. I should say they're in it to win it, and Milwaukee better wake up, because if not, if they're going to be waking up, they're thinking, oh dear. So they better get it together. And I think they will. I think Giannis and crew will get it together. And I think, look, like you said, I think by the time we come back on Monday, this will be a totally different series.
I agree with you there. Segment number 1 is in the books. Segment number 2, stay tuned for more sports and more fun as the weekend edition of Second City Sports continues with NBA coaching news. We have some other news from the sporting world, and USA basketball, both women's and the men's teams are set, and plus a whole lot more. Along with Lakeena McGee, which is she, I am Sydney Brown, which is me. You're listening to weekend edition of Second City Sports. Your screen. Welcome back to the second half of Second City Sports Zoom style.
Zoom style.
Along with Lakeena McGee, which is she, I am Sidney Brown, which is me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
You can follow us on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. You can follow our podcast, which is the audio version, at War on Anchor. Excuse me. Once again, at WARR on Anchor. You can go to our website, weareregalradio.com, for more information. And you can follow us on all social media platforms. That's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And right here on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and right here on YouTube. Thank you very much for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Yes, subscribe. And we are unapologetically fun. Lakeena, let's continue the fun talking NBA basketball. There's been a number of changes as far as head coaching is concerned. Portland and New Orleans are still vacancies as far as head coaches are concerned, but we have a few that were filled earlier this week. Of course, the latest one was Jason Kidd, the former NBA player. He's now, of course, a basketball Hall of Famer, the former assistant coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. Now he's going to be the head man for the Dallas Mavericks. And the former Nike executive is now going to be the GM. There's a little sticky situation there. Of course, the former head coach of the Dallas Mavericks, Rick Carlisle, of course, he won his title with the Mavericks in 2011. He's going back to Indiana, and he's going to have his second stint as the head coach of the Indiana Pacers. And Yumi Udoka, former NBA player, a longtime assistant under head coach Greg Popovich in San Antonio. He's going to be the new head man, a.k.a. the actress Nia Long's husband. He's going to be the new head man for the Boston Celtics. Lakeena, what do you think of these moves?
Yeah, I like all these moves. I think, Jason Kidd, I'm a little surprised by, especially after what happened the last time when he was there as a player. So I'm a little surprised that we won't get into that, but, you can Google it yourself, my friends. But yeah, Nico Harrison is the Nike executive. There's some red tape they have to pull through, but I'm sure Mark Cuban will be able to pull that out with him as well. The Rick Carlisle thing, I'm not surprised. I know some people kind of wanted to make it India, they didn't do the whole diversity, hiring your process, whatever. I guess Brian Shaw, apparently he was interested in the job. But look, if you got someone like a Rick Carlisle who was actually successful there when he was first there, has a championship, has won a championship since then. I don't care who you are, you're gonna try and get him especially with all these coaching vacancies. So we'll see how that works out for him over in Indiana. Udoka, look, despite what some people might say, he's not the first black coach for Boston. They've had 5.
Thank you.
That's for anybody that wants to tell you otherwise. There have been black coaches. There have been 5 of them. So he is number 6, but. Yeah, look, I think he's a good fit there. I know people are kind of wondering, okay, when's Nia Long gonna be there courtside TD Garden, but that's another story there. So it's gonna be interesting to see how the roster's there. There might be some turnover next year. Smart might be leaving, so that's just again, that's all depends on how how the roster is, but. Yeah, I think these are some, these are some good fits. Like you said, Portland's still looking for somebody. New Orleans is still looking for someone. So it's going to be very interesting to see how all this sort of sorts itself out.
Going first to the Dallas situation, Jason Kidd getting his third stint as head coach. Of course, his 2 previous stops, Milwaukee and Brooklyn, and they did not end well. We all know why. We'll leave that alone. But I think things will be different, hopefully, this time for Jason Kidd. He's getting a good team in Dallas. I know they have a couple of free agents, I believe, including Tim Hardaway Jr., who's a free agent this summer. So that team may need a point guard. They may need another shooting guard to go along with Luka Doncic as well. I know Kristaps Porzingis, who had his moments this year. He's been the healthiest ever since he's been in Dallas, but he had his moments after the playoffs, saying that he wasn't happy as his role as the quote-unquote second man. So we'll see what happens there. I don't know if they could do anything with him, so he may be stuck there. But Jason Kidd has inherited a playoff team. The question is now, can he take that team to the next level? Will he have the roster to do it? You have Luka Doncic, who's a top 5, top 10 player in this league? Can you give him the right pieces around him for you to go to that next level?
And I think that's going to be the $1 million question, right? Can you get that, like you said, that secondary person to kind of play with Luka? Because I think that's sort of like the thing. I mean, we know Luka's great, but again, a lot of the guys that's been around him has not been very good. I mean, Porzingis had a lot of injury issues, and things like that. So it's going to be very interesting to see what Dallas does during the offseason and sort of type of maneuvering, because they've got a pretty sticky cap situation themselves. So it's going to be very interesting to see where this goes. I'm looking forward to see what happens there in Dallas.
And also, too, I like the move for the Indiana Pacers, bringing back Rick Carlisle. I know it's been a long time since he coached there the first time, but he has a young roster. I like their pieces, point guard Malcolm Brogdon. And you have Miles Turner there as well. Of course, Nate McMillan did a heck of a job a couple of years ago until Victor Oladipo got hurt. He was a top 5, top 4 MVP candidate just the last couple of years there for Oladipo was injury played, and Nate McMillan didn't see the playoff success that most people expected. Much of that was due to Victor Oladipo's injury. So, of course, Indiana let him go before this past season. So, Rick Carlisle is going to have a challenge as well, but he gets the most out of his players. They still need another star. Where are they going to get that? I don't know. But in the short term, I really like this hire for the Pacers. He really taking the young team to the next level. Are they a championship level team? No. Are they a playoff team? Perhaps, but you still need another big piece.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the thing. Now, what about Boston?
I don't know what they're doing in Boston. I know they traded away Kemba Walker. I know he has knee issues and that may play a factor as far as where Mr. Walker ends up for the rest of his career. I know they brought back Matt Horford, but I don't know which direction they're going to right now, Lakeena, so we'll see what happens there. Joining us right now, he is the sports anchor over at CBS 2 Chicago WBBM TV. We enjoy his work every night, Monday through Saturday. Seems like he's working every day of the week. He's Mr. Matt Zahn. You can find him on social media at Matt Zahn Sports. That's once again at Matt Zahn. That's ZAHN Sports. That's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Sir, welcome to our show. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Sorry I'm a little late hopping on here with you guys.
No problem. It's no problem at all.
That's okay. We're just happy to have you. We were talking about the NBA. Of course, we'll start off with the Chicago Bulls, and of course, we were going to get into this during this segment. But Zach LaVine has been selected to the USA national basketball team for the Olympics in Tokyo next month. And of course, the Bulls have been a story in a positive sense of this past season. Of course, they failed to make the playoffs. But first, your comments on Zach LaVine going to the Olympics next month in Tokyo.
Yeah, obviously it's a fantastic opportunity for him. And, to me, it's sort of a continuance of what's been like this breakout season for Zach LaVine. He finally gets his first All-Star appearance, and now he gets to go join the Olympic team for the first time in his career. Some people are talking about maybe he can recruit some guys there. I doubt that probably happens, but, maybe that's an added benefit. But, yeah, this is going to be a great experience for him, and I think probably help him make him a better player as he goes forward.
Now, Matt, what about the Bulls for next season? Unfortunately, they didn't get that top 4 protected pick, so no first-round pick. So
don't be surprised.
Well, we know how some Bulls, you guys know how some Bulls fans are. They were all like, crap, that was a wasted, trade. But Matt, what do you think? What can the Bulls do? I mean, there is some, salary cap issues and such. Lowry, whether or not he comes back, some guys will probably be gone. So what's your synopsis for the Bulls?
Yeah, my guess is Lowry's probably not back. They gave him a chance to sort of show what he can do, and I don't think he showed him enough last year. Obviously it stinks to not get that top 4 pick because if you could have gotten one of those point guards there, that would have been perfect. Now they're probably going to have to go out and find a way to acquire one. Obviously, Lonzo Ball's the name you hear the most. I'm not sure. It's hard to say at this point because we don't know a ton about Arturas, exactly what he's going to do. But I think obviously point guard's going to be the big place they go after, especially with, even if Kobe White hadn't gotten hurt, I think they were still going to look in that direction. But now I think that's especially the case. I still like the trade. I like going for it for Vooch, even though they didn't make the playoffs and they lose the first round pick. I wish he was a year or two younger, but I still think it's going to work out to be a good thing for them.
And sticking with the Bulls, speaking of the young core, give us your assessment on the rookie season of Patrick Williams. I know he's only 19 years old, but
Right.
I really like the upside of Mr. Williams. He has it in terms of defensively, but offensively, I think he still has some work to do. But I'm really excited for this young man starting next season. Give us your assessments of his rookie season.
Yeah, I agree with you. Upside, obviously, sometimes a dangerous word when it comes to talking about players. But, I mean, he came in, I think, far more polished than most of us thought because he, obviously the big story was he hadn't even started in college, but I think that was more of just he was a freshman on a veteran, talented team. I really liked some of the things he showed. Obviously, there were some struggles down the stretch, but I think that was more, just him getting used to his first rookie season. I do like the potential of Patrick Williams. If you ask me what the ceiling is, that's hard for me to answer. I don't. Is he a superstar at some point? That seems maybe a little high. But it does seem like he has what it takes to develop into a pretty good player. And I liked a lot of the things I saw his rookie year.
Well, let's go to the dive for a second, Matt. I teased Sid about this earlier when we were recording. The White Sox won. They split their series with the Pirates, breaking the losing streak. Yay!
Right.
So, but they have they're tops in their division right now. What do you think? What kind of moves do you think that Rick Hahn will make before the trade deadline to make this team like not only elite in their division, but elite in all of the American League and perhaps maybe in a World Series run?
Yeah, well, it seems to me, and probably to most people, that there's kind of at least two definite moves you want to make, and then a third one. It depends on how much you want to give up, how high do you want to go on that. Do you want to go all in on this 1 year? You could certainly say the way Rodon's pitching, the way Lance Lynn's pitching, both of them are only on 1-year deals. Maybe this is the year to go all in. So, it depends. If you don't think you're going to get Luis Robert back, I think you obviously got to find some outfield depth. Maybe you could fill that with one person. Maybe you get somebody who can play second base and outfield because you need somebody at both of those positions right now, I think, pretty desperately. And then the other thing, some relief help, like maybe another righty in the bullpen because that, as they talk about, the bridge from the starters to Hendricks has been very shaky. So that would be the places I would go. And I guess it depends on how much, if they think you want to go all in or do they want to extend this window? That's the question you got to ask. If you want to, how many prospects do you want to be giving up to get these guys?
We're talking to Matt Zahn, sports anchor and host for CBS 2 Chicago Sports, WBBM TV on the weekend edition of Second City Sports, along with Lakeena McGee. I am Cindy Brown. Matt, let's stay with the White Sox for just a moment. Of course, the big elephant in the room, no pun intended, is manager Tony La Russa. You can say what you want to about the hiring last offseason. Of course, that quote-unquote controversy with Yerman Mercedes with the series against Minnesota last month. But give us your assessment on Mr. La Russa so far. Me personally, despite all those distractions, he's a perfect manager for this still young veteran team. You can talk about the veterans with Dallas Keuchel. He's been there before, and some of the other guys like Jose Abreu, but this is still a pretty young ball club. And Tony La Russa, I believe, still the perfect manager for this team.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd call him the perfect manager, but
no, but you know what I mean. He's the right manager
I
for
get
this
you.
team.
I get what you're saying. Obviously he has had some bumps in the road, as you expect for a 76-year-old who hasn't managed in 10 years. And I haven't agreed with a ton of things he's done, but to your point, it's hard to argue with what has happened. I mean, they've lost two of their best players and another key infielder, and they're still playing good baseball. Now, personally, I think you could argue that in baseball, how much does the manager even matter? As long as he doesn't get in the way, you're probably doing all right. And it's more about just sort of managing their egos isn't quite the right word, but just keeping the team together and keeping them along on this 162 game season. I think more now than little baseball decisions. I think.
Now let's go to Northside for a second, Matt. This is sort of like unexpected because I don't think anybody thought that the Cubs would be where they are right now, tied for first place in the National League Central. I don't know if you had that right. I mean, I don't think anybody did. So,
yeah. Can
the Cubs contend, or can Jed Hoyer make any kind of moves trying to make this team perhaps maybe a legit contender in the National League?
Yeah, I mean, well, there's certainly a contender in the National League Central. I mean, that would, when you said nobody thought that they would win, I mean, I guess we thought they could maybe compete in this division because it frankly isn't that great. I don't know if there are enough moves out there to make them a contender for like, you know, if you're going to say go all the way to the World Series, because there's a lot of good teams out there. The Dodgers, the Padres are clearly better, although they've taken care of the Dodgers so far this year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the funny thing is the pieces you'd want to add are the pieces you had. You know, they need a frontline starter. Hugh Darvish. You know, they could use a bat. Kyle Schwarber. So
the White Sox could use Schwarber too, but that's
yeah, right. Yeah, everybody can use Schwarber right now. But yeah, I you know, as long as they stay atop the division, I think they have to be buyers. You know, it's the big. You know, we just had the reopening day at Wrigley Field. You're gonna celebrate. You know, you want the fans all pumped up. And while you're in contention, you're going to sell off some of these players. I don't think that happens. I think they will. I don't know if it's an all-in go for it, but I think they will try to add some stuff to at least give it a shot.
Let's stick with the Cubs pitching staff, Matt. Of course, they made history on Thursday night with their first combined no-hitter in franchise history, shutting out the Dodgers 4-0. Zach Davies was the starter for that one. Of course, Paul Chafin and closer Craig Kimbrell finished it off at the end there. Talk about this Cubs bullpen. It was one of their Achilles heels in that shortened season last year, but this year, you know, despite their struggles until recently, they've been the forefront for this team, especially given their struggles offensively. Talk to us about that Cubs bullpen. Perhaps the best in the National League, maybe the best in baseball.
Yeah, especially those three, Tepera, Chafin, and Kimbrel. And I think I even tweeted out last night that the way they pitched all year, they kind of deserved this shot to be part of a no-hitter because they've been the best pitchers on the Cubs.
Right.
And then once those guys got in there, it was pretty funny. You pretty much, you know, you figured it was going to get done. I didn't expect any of them to give up a hit at that point. But yeah, they've been amazing. You know, Kimbrel, whatever he's found, has it's been a rebirth, and he's dominant right now. And those other two, Tepera and Chafin, you know, that gives you the best. I mean, that's probably the best 7, 8, 9 in baseball right now, to see those guys. So herein lies the problem with the Cubs. If their starting pitchers could just give them 6 decent innings most nights, they're going to be in the game. But that's been a challenge at times for them.
All right, let's go to the gridiron for a second, Matt. The Bears, you know, things are starting to look up for the Bears. They drafted Justin Fields. It looks like me. But then, you know, Eddie Dalton's the QB1, and then all this other stuff started happening. And then Matt Nagy said, well, you know, Dalton's our quarterback, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So what's your opinion on this? Because I know that there are some Bears fans that are sort of like,
right.
You know, it's just crazy. What do you think, Matt?
So, yeah, I'm. My guess is Andy Dalton does still start week 1, pretty much no matter what. And I'm not. What I can't tell is I'm not sure if Matt Nagy is just absolutely saying Andy Dalton is a starter, so he doesn't have to deal with quarterback controversy, quarterback competition. I don't know. Maybe it might even be to take some of the pressure off of Justin Fields all during training camp. Because if he said this is a wide open competition, I mean, all eyes are on every pass every single day. So maybe this is a way to sort of let Justin Fields just learn, take some pressure off him, and let Andy Dalton start from the get-go. Now, I think Justin Fields is going to be on the field sooner rather than later. It just doesn't make sense. I can't see any scenario where Andy Dalton is so great that you can't play Fields. So I think this is more about letting Fields just sort of ease in a little bit.
Even though the Bears have been a playoff team 2 out of the last 3 years, Matt, we know how last season ended. It ended ugly because everybody in the front office, including head coach Matt Nagy, was brought back by the McCaskies. But I'm looking at that defense. Of course, Khalil Mack is still dealing with his injuries to his knee. Of course, Eddie Goldman sat out last year due to COVID concerns. He's supposed to be back this year. This defense is getting older. Do you see this? Where do you see this defense? Because right now it's really at the middle, to be honest with you. We saw what they did last year, carrying them to the 5-1 record despite head coach Matt Nagy, who I do not trust mishandling that quarterback situation. But where do you see this defense heading to 2021?
Yeah, that might be, you know, you take obviously the quarterback competition is going to get all the questions, but how good can this defense be is probably one of the big questions with this team. And I think a lot of that might lie with the new defensive coordinator, Sean Desai. Like, how much do you believe in him going back to sort of the Vic Fangio way as opposed to Chuck Pagano. How much do you blame on Chuck Pagano? Those questions are going to be answered. Like, how much was it Chuck Pagano's fault? How much was it just the defense regressing and falling back? Because their sacks were down, the turnovers down, all their big plays.
Yeah.
Yes, they're getting older. Yes, they lost Kyle Fuller, but there's still a lot of talent on that side of the ball. And if Sean Desai can call things right, maybe more of a Vic Fangio style, there's a chance. I don't see a reason why this can't be a top 10 defense again. If the offense can be a little better too, that would certainly help them because obviously they've been on the field a lot the last 2 years.
Well, let's stick with the offense there, Matt. Allen Robinson, he came to minicamp. It doesn't he said he's not going to hold out for training camp. He is going to be there on time. So what do you think his sort of ceiling is this season? He got the franchise tag. I'm sure he's going to want to try to play for a big contract. Can he be productive though?
Yeah, I don't think. To me, it doesn't seem like Allen Robinson is the kind of guy who is going to let this affect his play on the field. Just from the many times talking with him, he seems like he's going to give it his all, no matter what's going on with the contract stuff. And if he can get some better quarterback play, imagine how good he can be. I mean, because he's been great with super shaky quarterback play pretty much his whole career, Before here, he had Blake Bortles, poor guy. So if we can give Allen Robinson a quarterback, that would make Allen Robinson happy. That would make all of us happy. But yeah, I mean, he is as solid as they come. I don't see any way, even with bad quarterback play and even with the contract stuff, that he doesn't have a highly productive season.
We're heading down the home stretch with CBS 2 Chicago sports reporter and host Matt Zahn right here on the weekend edition of Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee. I'm Sidney Brown. Matt, of course, we had to address the big elephant in the room regarding to the Chicago Bears. It's been in the news for the last couple of weeks, and the Bears organization, the McCaskies, put in a bid to purchase the Arlington racetrack course. They land out there in Arlington Heights. Of course, their current lease will be up following the 2033 season with the city of Chicago. I get the sense that I think the Bears may be serious this time because, of course, for people that are listening and watching us outside the Chicagoland area, Soldier Field, as we know it, it's the smallest capacity in the NFL. Of course, the city of Chicago, i.e. the Park District, owns that land, and the Bears do not own that. They had to ask the city for permission to upgrade Soldier Field. What is your thoughts about it? Me personally, I think it's serious enough to take, and I think the Bears eventually will get up out of here. For a business sense, this makes sense for them to make this move. Now, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I agree with that too. But from a business side, it obviously makes sense. The problem is there just isn't any room by Soldier Field. Right. It's hard to get in and out of. It's we all know there's tons of issues with it. Part of the problem, though, moving to Arlington Heights, which wasn't talked about, I don't think a ton as this has gone through, is how much it would cost. Obviously you talk about the business, you're going to make some money, but how much it costs to build that stadium.
Yep.
Taxpayers are going to be paying a lot of that. The McCaskies, while they're rich for us, among owners, they are not. They're the bottom 10 or so of the league. So if we're talking about $1 billion, $2 billion stadium and everything around it, that's going to be a lot of taxpayer money that's going to have to come in. So that also plays a role in it. It's just like a fan on the outside. I think it would be exciting if they were able to move to a new stadium and have a whole sort of like Bears district out there. There's just, the big thing is there's just so much more room. They could, a lot of these teams are doing this. They're not necessarily in their hearts of their city. They're building out and they're building these little villages around basically, and that's more revenue for the team.
All right, Matt. You covered sports in Wisconsin for a little bit.
Yes,
we have not talked about it much here, Sid and I, but the whole thing with Aaron Rodgers and that whole saga. I mean, I just I'm kind of over it. I mean, I'm hearing all this stuff, and what's your take on it? Because I think he will go to training camp. I just don't see why he wouldn't at this point,
right?
Especially after everything. So what's your take?
Yeah, he sure is being kind of a diva, isn't he? Yeah,
so was Brett Favre before he
was just
got traded out
of there.
Yeah,
about being a quarterback in Green Bay. Like eventually, you're like, okay, now I have to be a total diva. I don't know what leads them down that road eventually. I can't see any scenario where the Packers trade him, and I can't see him sitting out. So maybe he doesn't show up at the beginning of training camp, but I think he's going to be their quarterback this year. To me, speculation purely here. Maybe this is about his new, I can't remember if they're married yet. I think it's just fiance, the Shailene, the actress. Maybe, he just, being with her, he wants to live out west somewhere and doesn't want to live in Green Bay anymore for half the year, which at times you can't blame him for that. But he can't come out and say that. So maybe that's where you get this sort of manufactured problems with the organization. And, because really, other than drafting Jordan Love last year, what have they not done to do everything they can for Aaron Rodgers, basically? They've been close to the Super Bowl multiple years recently. So, his complaints sort of don't hold water. So that's why I think there may be more to it than just he's mad at the Packers, because that doesn't seem right.
Let's go back to basketball, Matt. Of course, as Lakeena mentioned, you're from the state of Wisconsin. Of course, the Milwaukee Bucks are in the Eastern Conference Finals for the second time in 3 years. They're facing the Atlanta Hawks. But overall, are you enjoying these NBA playoffs? I know some people are saying that without LeBron, without Steph, now without Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, without Joel Embiid, these playoffs are not going to be as interesting. I said debunk that. Me personally, I've been enjoying these playoffs. To be honest with you, what's your take as far as the teams remaining in these NBA playoffs?
I agree totally that it's exciting. It's not like back in the '90s or so when we'd have some of those like terrible Nets Spurs finals with no real exciting play. Like these guys, maybe we don't know, but there are a lot of exciting players left. I mean, like Devin Booker, Chris Paul making his shot. Obviously, it'd be nice if Kawhi was still in there. But yeah, and Trae Young, Giannis, like these guys are fun, exciting players to watch. Yeah. I definitely don't think because we don't have LeBron in here again, it's not. And some of those other guys, I don't think that's taken anything away from this. Honestly, I mean, LeBron and AD won in the bubble last year, and was that exciting? Well, right. It wasn't really that great.
Right.
Yeah. So, I think that's just a cop-out. And then, of course, everyone will talk about if the ratings are down at all, that'll be the thing that everybody goes to.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, we'll talk about college sports for a second. Illinois has a new head coach, Brett Bielema, now back in the Big Ten. You got Northwestern, of course, with Pat Fitzgerald. Do you see either one of these teams kind of making sort of a run at the Big Ten West this coming season, I should say?
Yeah, I would guess probably it takes at least a year or two for Brett Bielema to sort of install what he wants, get all his players in there. So I'd be surprised if they were competing right away. Northwestern's always good. This might be a bit of a step back year for them too. So I guess I would say I'd be surprised if either of them were able to compete. Although the Big Ten West sometimes isn't as tough as
Right.
This is the toughest division in all sports.
That's true.
But they did win it last year and then gave Ohio State a run for a little bit.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, sticking with college sports, Matt, of course, earlier this week, the Supreme Court had a ruling as far as it looks like it's going to get a step closer to college athletes getting paid, not like professionals, but they'll get some type of fair payment. Of course, we all know throughout the years that the NCAA as an organization have been a bunch of crooks, to be honest with you. I'm just keeping the language clean, but what do you? But given this landscape of college sports, especially college basketball, if you're a college basketball player, some of the prospects are going to the G League, even though there's a few spots. Right. But if you're a college basketball player, if you're not getting the playing time, you can up and leave and go to another team right away. So that rule has opened up the door for that. But now it looks like we are set closer for college athletes to receive correct reimbursement. I'm just keeping it really correct here. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about like the name, image, and likeness is supposed to go into effect in some state. Obviously it's now the NCAA is acting like it's what they want. They really just are saying that because it's a mess now and they don't know how to fix it. But yeah, I mean, obviously college athletes have been exploited for forever. It's ridiculous. I guess this is at least a small step. I don't know where it goes. Do we? Even when you get to paying them, then that I have a feeling there's going to be tons of complications if we get to that point too. But yeah, obviously they deserve. It's crazy when like Nick Saban can make $8 million and then add on double, triple that with his endorsement deals. guys on the team technically not getting anything.
It's true. It's true, though. It's true. It is true.
But yeah, obviously this is a good step. Hopefully it leads to more ability for these student athletes who make so much money for these universities to get it's stupid. I mean, they deserve their share of the money.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's basically what the Supreme Court said. This is stupid. You can't have people working for free.
Exactly. Wrapping things up with CBS 2 sports anchor reporter Matt Zahn now. Matt, we'll stay with the college aspect for a second, going into men's hoops. Loyola and DePaul both have new head coaches. And also with the transfer portal, they've actually been able to get a pretty good haul with some of their guys. So do you see any of them kind of being sort of like that, getting that big step?
Yeah, Loyola should still be pretty good. I mean, obviously most of their senior class came back taking advantage of that waiver rule, other than Cameron Krutwig, who was probably their best player moving on. But yet they should still be, I would think, especially in their conference, in competition for a title. And, maybe they can make another run at the tournament. DePaul, I would say I would wait and see a little bit with DePaul. I mean, because there's a lot of work to be done there. For whatever reason, they just they haven't been able to get any traction. It just hopefully this new coach Stubblefield can get them going in the right direction. But until I see it, I'm not going to expect too much out of them.
See, Matt, you and I could go with the go talk about DePaul for a good half an hour. So it's absurd, just the absurdity of it. But again, that's for another time.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sid.
Lakeena's benching on this DePaul basketball.
That's 30 years of frustration, Matt. 30 years of frustration.
Well, it just feels like you're in Chicago. You should be better.
Exactly.
Facts.
Yeah.
Last question from me, Matt. Of course, we have a lot of people, especially young people that listen to us and watch us. And of course, they want to do what we do, and they eventually want to get to the steps that the stage where you're at right now. Of course, you covered a whole lot of major events throughout your career, working across the country. What's the main ingredient that you attribute to your long-time success as far as your sports broadcasting career?
Yeah, I would say, well, first of all, what you guys are doing is just doing stuff. I'd say my best advice for anyone is just reps. I mean, that's what it is. It's like, just keep doing it. Keep doing it. The more you do it, the easier it is. When I first started doing it, I was running around. I didn't know what I was doing. But the more reps you put in, the better. Make contacts with people. The more contacts you have, the more, that person maybe knows somebody who knows somebody where a job is open and they can put in a good word for you. Just always, and I see, maybe the number one thing is control what you can control, like working hard, doing all you can, putting in the reps, because there's a ton of things in this job and in most jobs that are out of your control. So as much as you can control, like you yourself being a good employee, when so much of it is subjective, I would say that is it. And just keep grinding.
All right, wrap it up, Sid.
Yeah, I just want to say before I move it on with Lakeena, I tell people all the time, you have to be versatile in this business as well.
Yes, we do.
Me personally, being on a podcast side now, I used to do radio. I did updates. I booked guests. I still book guests for this show, but yet I did updates. Ran the board, and I did everything else. So especially in this social media age now, you can't just limit yourself to one or two jobs. You have to be seen, whether it's we're doing Zoom right now, not just being heard, but you've been seen on YouTube and other outlets as well. So you have to be mindful of that. I say this all the time. We talk about sports media news also on this show. How people watch their games. It's not when we grew up, not to age ourselves, but you can't just watch. We don't watch sports and listen to it on just TV and radio anymore. Right. It's streaming and all other aspects of how we consume our sports. So the new age is here. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. So I tell people all the time, you do what we do what you do. We get to your level and more. You have to be versatile.
That is great advice. Learn as much as you can about every aspect, because you never want to not be able, you never want to lose something because I don't know how to do that. So just being as versatile as you possibly can be. and especially as we go forward, be willing to adapt as well.
I agree. And because, also too, for us females, especially females of color, I mean, I've done all that, all such as is done. I mean, I did updates, I booked guests, I, still do that. We did radio show for years, and now we're doing this. So I would say, just don't limit yourself. That's sort of the best advice I can give too.
Yeah, agree, 100%.
All right, that was Matt Zahn, sports director, sports anchor and TV host over at CBS 2 Chicago Sports. You can follow him on social media, I should say, at Matt Zahn Sports. That's MattzAhn Sports. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Once again, Matt Zahn Sports at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Hopefully I got that correct.
You
Matt,
did. You nailed it. Thank you.
Yes.
Love it. Awesome.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us. You keep up the great work, young man, and let's do this again soon.
All right. Appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me too.
Thanks, Matt.
All right. Thank you.
Safe.
Take care.
All right. Bye. Thank you.
All right. Once again, that was Mr. Matt Zahn, sports director at CBS 2 Chicago Sports. He does a great job. Watch him every night on WBBN TV Channel 2 if you're in the Chicagoland area. Lakeena, we have a couple of minutes left. Let's wrap it up. We want to talk about USA Basketball, both the women's and men's rosters. They are now final. We talked with Matt about Zach LaVine making the men's team. James Harden's going on there as well, along with Chris Paul, who's currently playing in the playoffs with the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, it's interesting sort of mix there, right? Sid, I mean, you got Kevin Durant, Damian Lillard, of course, LaVine, Booker, Drew Holiday, Bradley Beal, Chris Middleton, Kevin Love, Jason Tatum, Bam Adebayo, Grant Williams, and Jeremy Grant. So first look at this roster. I mean, the paint protection is going to be a little bit of an issue there, I think. But I guess, with Durant and I guess Love, I guess that's where the size is going to come in. You got guys that can shoot, especially with Lillard and LaVine and Middleton too. And also Tatum. Grant Williams is, a versatile power forward. He can shoot. I guess he can kind of go for the paint too if you need that. So, and Adebayo, I think, can also do that too on the inside. So I like this roster. I know some people are kind of, and look, how do you feel about Kevin Love being on the roster? I know certain people feel like, well, look, a lot of guys didn't want to play, Look, LeBron
exactly.
LeBron said the last of us is going to be his last one. So did Carmelo. Also, too, Steph Curry said he didn't want to go. That's how Zach LaVine got in there. So I think people need to kind of chill a little bit. And they've actually sent black players an all-black team before. Jalen Rose, they did it in the last Olympics 5 years ago. They did it 4 other times before that. So if I had to let it out there, Sid, because he just annoyed me what he said this on Thursday night, but that's another story. But yeah, I mean, how do you feel about this team, Sid? Because I really like the makeup of this team.
Yeah, I'm not too surprised about the makeup of this team. We talked about this when we were doing our radio show. Of course, this is all before the shutdown. But who was going to make this team? And I said, who of the new NBA stars needed to get that extra shine and needed to get the extra attention? I said Devin Booker, Damian Lillard. Now both those guys are on the team. James Harden, I'm glad he's on the team. How will their hamstring hold up? Because remember, that was bothering him in the playoffs. I know that he's not playing because the Nets are eliminated, but I wanted to see how long that hamstring will hold up and how much minutes he's going to play.
Yeah, and I think Pop will get the best out of a lot of these guys, I think. And look, I know this is not
Isn't this his last Olympics coaching as well?
Yeah, I think so. And
okay.
Look, this is not like 92 when US was, dominating teams by like 80, 70 or 80 points. That's just, those days are gone. You got the world's collectively is a lot better now. But there's no reason that the US shouldn't win the gold medal. That's just me. That's just my perspective. I know people were a little sort of, antsy after 5 years ago in Rio because they were close, the games were kind of cutting it close. But again, look, the world as a whole is a lot better at hoops now. And look, I think this team's more than capable of winning the gold. I think, look, you've got a nice little mixture of guys, a lot of youth, some experienced guys that have been on Olympic teams before in KD. And I think that's probably why Kevin Love was brought back to kind of bring that experience for a lot of these guys. It's going to be their first time in the Olympics. So I think that actually helps. I think so. I'm excited. I think I really like this team. I really do.
I like it as well. It's going to be tougher than what people expected. Like you mentioned, it's not the superstar roster of years past, but this is the new age NBA. As you mentioned, Lakeena, all the majority of the NBA superstars that we watch on a nightly basis, they play for their homegrown country, so that which makes the competition that much tougher. We've seen that over the last 20 plus years or so. Including 2004, which was disappointing, but I'm not going to work myself up for that foolishness. But anyhow, but this team should be in the gold medal game. I don't think it's going to be as easy as people expect, but I like their chances. I like their chances.
I do too. I think this is a really solid team. I think, look, like I said, a lot of guys, have already said they were going to, I think it's good that these guys are committed to playing for their country. But instead of, going on a tangent about, well, Steph didn't want to play and this guy didn't want to play. Look, let's concentrate on the guys that do want to play. And I know Matt said that, maybe, look, I think maybe Zach can probably, recruit a couple of guys. I think there are a couple of guys that I'm sure the Bulls fans would love having. But again, you never
why not?
know. Sure, you might do a little bit of recruiting. You're going to be there for about like a month. So yeah, why not?
Yeah, why not? Quickly before we close up shop, the women's roster. The only complaints that I've heard that this is a majority of ex UConn Huskies roster. I think over half the roster is former Huskies players. And I said, if this is the best that you have, so be it. Just go give me a gold medal. That's all I had to say about that. I just found those comments from some quote unquote experts to be just silly. Be honest with you.
Well, I think some people were sort of perturbed that the current MVP for the WNBA, Nanike Alagonier, I can't say her sister's name right either, it's Chene, so that's probably, I can't say her name right, but yeah, she's the current, the reigning WNBA MVP. She was left out. And okay, yeah, half the rosters, are people that Giorgio coached me was like UConn when they were at UConn. Okay, whatever. But I'm not like, look, there's a lot of depth in women's basketball, and I know some people want to say favoritism and such, but okay, whatever. Unfortunately, when it comes to the Olympics, especially when you're picking, people, there is going to be some politics involved, unfortunately. So I'm not gonna like. Okay, yeah, this person didn't make it. Okay, whatever. I'm not gonna lose sleep over it. I mean, look, Sue Bird still playing at a high level. She's 40, so I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna begrudge her. I mean, look, she can still play at a very high level. So I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, she can't play on the team. Okay, no, I'm not gonna tell her that. No, she can still play. So I'm not. I'm not. Look. I'm jealous, totally jealous that she's still playing at a very high level at her age. But
now that's making me feel old. I remember she entered the league, but
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. There you go. Look, I mean, it's fine. I mean, like I said, just go get the gold medal. As long as they win the gold medal, and they should. Who cares?
Yeah. Any other stories or anecdotes before we close this edition of Second City Sports out?
Gotta give a shout out to the Montreal Canadiens. They're back in the Stanley Cup Final for the first time since '93 when they won it. And
that stick incident with Barry Melrose and the LA Kings.
I remember that infamous Stanley Cup. But yeah, gotta congrats to those guys.
That cost Wayne Gretzky his cup with the Kings.
Yeah, so
Williams with the Kings. Yeah.
We don't talk about that, Sid. But yeah, I mean, like you gotta. After a long wait, we'll see. Game 7 will be played already between the Lightning and the Islanders, so we'll see who the Canadiens play. I know it's weird because the Canadiens are supposed to be, Eastern Conference, but again, with the way the realignment is, everything was
the COVID finals.
Yeah, so that's probably what's going to go. So yeah, so it's going to be like they're the third team in the expansion era to reach the Stanley Cup with the worst record in the playoff field. They joined the 2017 Preds and the 2010 Flyers, which the Hawks actually beats to win that Stanley Cup. But that's another we won't talk about that either.
We got to bring our good friend Rachel Kopchak back. I don't know if you've been following her on Instagram. She's been fired up for these playoffs. I'll be honest with you. I'll watch the Stanley Cup Final only because the NBC's tenure will end.
Yeah.
And I know I'll shed a few tears because I know whenever was Game 4, Game 5, Game 6, or if whoever plays goes to Game 7, I'll shed a couple of tears because NBC hopefully will do a montage. I know Doc Emery, who's retired now, the majority of those clips or those calls will go to his voice, including those 3 Blackhawks Stanley Cup championships. I'll shed a couple of couple of tears
Yeah.
here and there because the end of an era for NBC will be ending. Of course, I'll be looking forward to the NHL on TNT. Of course, ESPN will be returning to the fray, covering hockey full time with games next season. I definitely cannot wait for that. And since you brought up hockey, Lakeena, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up just a congratulations to Mr. Pat Foley.
Yes.
Next season
I
for
was
the
gonna bring it up,
21-22 season, he'll call his 39th and unfortunately final season for the Chicago Blackhawks. Of course, you are reading reports over the last couple of days. The Blackhawks were not interested in renewing his contract. He wanted to do a 40th season, perhaps beyond that, but next season will be his last season. Of course, the organization said that they'll be doing tributes to him all season long. Usually the Blackhawks organization, they do the right things, but as we talked about, Lakeena, John McDonough, who's no longer there, he got let go during the pause last year before the qualifying tournament in the bubble last year. Of course, Stan Bowman still has his job. That's a whole nother issue. Of course, you have that the sexual abuse case going on right now from an unnamed player from the 2010 team. And so it's just a big old mess right now. And we won't get into the case part of it because they're still ongoing. We'll comment on more as more information comes out. But getting back to Pat Foley, he's in a Hockey Hall of Fame as a broadcaster. He was inducted there a few years ago. So Pat Foley, he's been the soundtrack to all of our lives as Chicago sports fans and hockey fans in particular, of course. Old man Bill Wirtz no longer with us. He let him go prior to the lockout following the 2004 season. Of course, Pat Foley stayed until did the Chicago Wolves games. Of course, he was brought back prior to the 2008-09 season. He's been there ever since. So he's a Hall of Famer for sure, no doubt about it. And it's going to next season is going to be one for the history books. I wish I could say that the Hawks could end it with the Stanley Cup title. I don't think that's possible, even though I think the future's so bright for those guys over there. But for Pat Foley, next season is going to be one to remember. I just want to say congratulations to Mr. Foley, Hall of Famer, on a great career. Next season will be interesting to watch and listen to his historic calls.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be the end of an era, and I hate that that the Blackhawks didn't give him that 40th, that extra years, because you can kind of like 40, a nice round number, because he is sort of the voice of the Blackhawks for our childhood, Sid. So not that we're raising ourselves or anything, but I mean, sharing stories. Look, I know some people want to get on him for some of the stuff he said last year that was quote unquote not PC, but look, he's old school. Look, I hope it's going to be very interesting. Now we'll see if Eddie Olczyk, decides, because I think his year is up after next season too. So we might have a totally different, TV, Blackhawks TV crew. So play-by-play crew. So yeah, so I'm definitely, some of the games, I can go on and on talking about some of the games that the legendary games that Foley has called. And there have been a lot. And we'll share more about it as the next season goes on. But hopefully we'll have somebody on talking from their perspective about him at this point. But yeah, there's definitely gonna be the end of an era for Blackhawks and for the NHL period, because he's just was just dynamite from start to finish, and he's definitely gonna be a voice that will be missed.
Yeah, like I just mentioned a few moments ago, Doc Emmerich retiring after last season. Of course, Pat Foley will retire after next season. So the great ones are going away. I know we'll always have to make room for the next generation. But as you mentioned, Lakeena, Pat Foley has been the voice of Chicago Blackhawks hockey for many fans for generations. So for three plus generations, so almost 4 decades. So congratulations to him on a great career. Next season should be and will be fun as we listen to him behind the mic one last time. As we bring this show to a close for this week, Lakeena, take us out.
All right. Well, also, too, some good news for you in the hockey front. Mark Messier will be a studio analyst for ESPN for their hockey coverage. So we'll talk more about that.
Probably Kevin Weeks as well.
Yeah, hopefully. So we'll talk more about that. Also, the Euros are starting, round of 16, the knockout rounds. So that should be a lot of fun. Also, you got the College World Series going on, too. right now. So definitely a lot of sports, in addition to the playoffs and baseball. So, it's going to be rainy here in the region for this next several days, I should say. So, want to come up and watch a little bit of sports on your respective devices. Now,
yeah, just hold off the rain for the Sox games because this is reopening weekend.
Yeah, you should be fine. I think from the weather forecast, you guys should be fine.
Yeah, so it's reopening weekend for the White Sox. It's open up to 100% capacity. As we said in our last couple of episodes, you know where to go get your tickets. Sox fans, don't complain anymore. This is a good team. Go watch your White Sox play. It's open now. This team is good. They want and need your support.
And also to bring your umbrellas and your ponchos, kids, because it's going to be a wet series, if nothing else. With that said, you can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter and the IG and these social media streets, as the kids would say, at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80, SIDKID80. And you can follow this show, Second City Sports, right here on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. Videos drop every Monday and Friday. Once again, videos drop every Monday and Friday right here on YouTube. You can, for a sneak peek, you can catch our audio version of this podcast at War on Anger, which drops every Tuesday and Saturday. Once again, every Tuesday and Saturday for the audio version. We are available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. Make sure you type in those search engine boxes on your podcast platforms, WARR on Anchor. You can go to our website, weareregalradio.com, for more information. That's WEAREREGAL radio.com. And you can follow us on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you very much for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Yes, and we'd like to thank our special guest, Mr. Matt Zahn, sports director at CBS 2 Chicago Sports, for hopping on with us today. You can follow him on social media at Matt Zahn Sports. That's MATTZAHN Sports. That's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'd like to thank him for joining us today.
All right, so for Sid, I'm Lakeena. Stay warm, stay safe, stay dry. And for Sid, I'm Lakeena. This has been Second City Sports Zoom style, and we'll see you next week.
Go Sox. Till next time. Holla!